Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Behind the Smile. Today's guest is Georgie Irvine. Georgie is a former personal stylist turned sobriety coach, health and wellness coach, mindset coach, and the proud owner of Thrivalist, an online space supporting sober curious women to feel empowered as they change their relationship with alcohol. After transforming her own life through sobriety in January 2022, Georgie felt a huge calling to help other women experience the same freedom, clarity, and confidence that comes from living alcohol free. Georgie journeyed through Thrivalist actually as a member and then a mentor and coach, and now the proudest of owners. The community remains one of the most meaningful parts of her life and work and is an ever growing sisterhood that she's incredibly honored to lead and be part of. Georgie is also the mum to her 18-year-old son, Ryder, and her 15-year-old daughter, Rio, her absolute everything. And she is married to an amazing man who's one of the biggest cheerleaders, no matter what direction she takes her life. Georgie is also a daughter, a sister, an auntie, and a friend. And of all these relationships, they mean the absolute world to her. She's also the host of Sober Not Sorry, which is currently on hold, an intentional pause that reflects Georgie's strong boundaries around protecting her energy and avoiding overwhelm. She's a passionate advocate for making sobriety feel like a beautiful act of self care rather than self sacrifice. Now, I first connected with Georgie around a year ago when I joined her on her podcast, Sober Not Sorry. And from that moment, we've really been wanting to get Georgie onto Behind the Smile, but we needed the stars to align, and they finally have. It's happening right here, right now, and I am so, so excited. So, without any further delay, Georgie, welcome to Behind the Smile. How are you?
Well, I knew as soon as you started reading my bio and you're going to mention my children that I would have tears rolling down my face, and I certainly did. So I've started off with a few of those, which isn't uncommon with me. But I am so honoured to be here, Ash, and have a chat about all things health, wellness, and sobriety, and just how life's unfolded over the last year since we chatted last.
Yeah, I know. It's been quite the journey. And, the fact that you're still sober is absolutely amazing. And Thrivalist is going from strength to strength. And we were chatting offline before that your babies have gone back to boarding school. Is that right?
Yeah, so my son's finished his boarding school experience and he's moved back to Adelaide, which is 4 hours from where I live. He done year 11, 10, 11 and 12 at boarding school. He's now moved over to Adelaide to live with some mates and embark on a university degree. And my daughter is 15, as you said, and she's just started her boarding school experience. So she's just gone into year 10 in Adelaide. So I'm just adjusting to life without her. She's a little bit of my ride or die. If I don't know what to wear, I usually ask her, does this look okay? And I haven't had that these last, 10 weeks, I think it's been, apart from a few FaceTimes where I've needed her support. So, yeah, life's definitely taken a different direction this year, but I'm just rolling with it. As I said to you, Ash, happy kids, happy mum.
Yeah, that's beautiful. How amazing that your children get to go off and have those experiences and that you still get to have that really close bond with them. It's beautiful.
Yeah, yeah. And they are very lucky to have these experiences. And I think it's just making sure that they're aware of that and also to keep them grounded in the fact that they do have that privilege, to go away and experience a different city and experience what life's got to offer.
Is that what your experience was? Did you go to boarding school or what inspired you to take the children down that path?
I didn't go to boarding school. I think I would have I had the opportunity. I grew up with a single mum that worked her absolute butt off. So we didn't sort of have those opportunities because boarding school is quite an investment.
Mm.
When my husband and I had children, we always said if we were financially able, we would offer the kids the opportunity, and it was going to be up to them if they wanted to take that opportunity or not. We just wanted them to see that there's something outside of our town. We're in regional Victoria, but it is quite a small town. So we just thought, go if they want to go and have a crack at anything they have to offer. And we just prayed that they would actually love it. And so far, as I said, Ryder's moved back there. So he's such a happy boy. He loves Adelaide. And Rio started off really well. Her boarding school journey's been amazing. So, yeah, it's just nice to sit back as parents. And I think we've worked really hard to give them this opportunity and they're both embraced it, So that's all we could have asked for.
Absolutely. And also, I mean, I'm sure at the moment it's so fresh with Rio still only having just left, but finding time for you again must be really nice as well.
It's really lovely. And I must say, I've always had those personal boundaries in place over the last 3 years through my sobriety, even being that mum that is running around after the children. But I've always found I've done that early in the morning before the day started. But I think what both the kids being away from home has allowed me to do is really tap further into my business. And business is more than just business. You know, business is personal growth, personal development, getting to know yourself, understanding yourself better. Business is running your own business is not easy,
Mm.
and trying to sort of navigate the emotions and the business side of yourself is something that I've found really challenging. But being home and being run my business from home, and that's when I say being home, so it sort of allows me to tap into that side of things and really get to know myself in that area without having to just sort of mum every day, which yeah, so it's been really interesting in that regard. And I always look at every day as an opportunity. So as much as I have been super duper sad not to have my children at home, and it is sad and it is really hard as a mum, and my husband feels the same, but I just take it as an opportunity to do something for myself, something different, as you said, and that's what I've done.
Amazing. And I cannot wait to dive into exactly what that looks like for you a little further down this conversation today. But before we go any further, I would love for our audience just to get to know you a little bit better, Georgie. So we're going to start with, where do you live? You mentioned regional Victoria, but I'd love to know where. Tell me, what does an average day look like as a business owner? And what do you do for fun?
Okay, so my day starts at 5:15, and I get up, I pop my hair up in a really high ponytail, I brush my teeth, I get my active wear on, and I go to the gym. So I train at the Yard Gym in Mildura. So I live in Mildura, country Victoria, on the Murray River. The Murray River is my place. It's like my place of peace. A lot of people have that as the ocean, but for me, it is the river. So my day starts at 5:15. I either get to the gym or I go for a run. I actually love running as well, and I usually spend an hour to 2 hours doing something in the gym or some sort of running. At the moment, it is then just come home, have a shower, get ready for my working day, sit at my desk, or have one-on-ones with clients, and just get into the day. Finish finish my day usually with, I switch off my desk at around sort of 6 o'clock, and then I'll go and cook some dinner, have a chat to my husband when he gets home from work, and then I'll literally go and sit on the couch with my laptop on my lap and continue on with some work or Instagram or whatever I do. Ash, for fun, exercise is my fun. It's my outlet. It's my mental health support. But also, I just love being at home. Like, I truly do. So even at the end of the day, I work from home, but it's different. When I go out into the kitchen or I jump on the couch, that is what I do for fun. That is what I really enjoy doing, and that is my peaceful, happy place.
I love that. Have you always been a homebody, or is that something that's been revealed to you along your sobriety journey?
I definitely wasn't a homebody growing up. I think I always felt like I was a real social butterfly, and I know I was as a young girl. I would always fuel up by being around people. I would always want someone over, or I would want to be going over to their house for a sleepover and things like that. So I think it is something that I've sort of developed in the last year. Sorry, the last 3 years or so. And I think it's just accepting now that that is who I am as well, and not trying to be anyone else other than that girl that just really, really loves being at home. And as you said in my bio, a lot of relationships that are really important to me, I do make sure I nourish those, but they'll generally be for lunch or be for coffee versus going out for dinner, going out for a late night. I just really love being home in the evenings and having a really early night so I can have a beautiful sleep and, yeah, get up when the alarm goes off in the morning and off I go.
I was going to ask you that. What time are you going to bed if you're getting up at 5:15?
I usually make sure I'm in bed by around 8:30, but at the moment I'm probably not switching off until about 9:30, 10 o'clock. What
Yeah.
I found in sobriety though is when I drank, I used to count the hours I'd have of sleep, and I'd be like, oh, as long as I get 8 hours sleep, I'm going to wake and I'm going to feel amazing, which I never did. With being a sober girl, I find that I can go to sleep at 10 o'clock. And as long as I've had quality sleep, I feel really good during the day or throughout the day.
That's great. It's also like everybody's different. And I think when it comes to, I've had my own journey with what sleep looks like for me and getting up early. And there was a stage in my sobriety earlier on where I was getting up really, really early. I was still working full time for a corporate organization. So that meant having to get up at 5 to get to the gym, to get all of those things done before I then was at my desk at 9 a.m. ready to go with full face of makeup on. But what I've found, particularly in the last 18 months, I've really been tuning in and honoring my body and asking myself, what do I need? And sleep has just felt more and more important for me. My partner's a shift worker, so that's not always something that I can control what time he's getting home. But even just the last few nights, I have really made it a priority and I've been sleeping like 9.5 hours. And I just think to myself, wow, I must really need that. But I do find it hard to get myself into bed at I probably fall asleep around 10 o'clock and wake up around 6. But, if I was being true to myself, I think my body would much be happier, much more getting up around 7:30. It's interesting. And I think that's something that just changes and evolves over time and what's happening internally, externally, stresses, all those sorts of things. It's good just to be, in tune with your body and be able to respond to what works for you. So if the 5 a.m. club is your jam, like that's amazing.
Yeah, yeah, and it definitely is. And I have tried, there was a time when I first took over the business that I was waking really early. I think I was just in a little bit of fight or flight mode in trying to survive. And I would wake really early, like 4 o'clock. So I would get actually to my desk and do a little bit of work. And I wouldn't go to gym until 7 o'clock. But I just found that I was really, really out of whack. So once I sort of settled down and got out of that fight or flight mode, I was able to then go back. And it does work for me, like that 5:50 a.m. does work for me. Full transparency though, Ash, if I have the time, I will take a nana nap in the afternoon to reset. So it might get to 2 o'clock and I might be at my
Yes.
desk and I might feel really cooked and just a little bit like, oh, I'm not focused anymore. If I can find 20 minutes, I will take 20 minutes. And I tell you what, then I can work for the rest of the afternoon and feel really productive. So I always see a nana nap as productivity. And I'll say that to anyone. It's a little form of self care for me and productivity to get that little bit of rest in. So as much as I do get up at 5:50 a.m., you'll often find me between 2 and 3 o'clock, little nana nap.
I am here for a nana nap. Again, that's something that I've only started doing in recent times. I wear an aura ring and it tells me like how many cat naps I've had in the last quarter. And I think I took 9 between January and March, which says
Yeah.
something. I find as well, especially if I'm teaching really early and then I have a break in the day and I'm teaching again at night, that nana nap is like absolute fuel for me. So not accessible for everyone, obviously. If you're working in an office environment, maybe don't go into the boardroom and get under the table for 20 minutes. But if you're at home and you've got that time available, absolutely a fan of the old cat nap.
Yeah, exactly right. Totally agree. I think I would have had way more nana naps than you in that time, Ash. But anyway, as I said, I am working from home, so I allow that.
I love it. I love it. All right, Georgie. So I've asked you to bring in a photo today, and that photo is from a time in your life where you are hiding behind a smile. So you were presenting one version of yourself to the outside world, but the truth was you were struggling on the inside. Georgie, can you please describe for our listeners who aren't watching this right now the photo that I'm bringing up on the screen? What are we looking at here? Can you please describe the photo and then tell us what was happening for you at that time in your life?
Okay, I'll probably get a little bit emotional with this. So it's a photo of me sitting on the top deck of a houseboat on the beautiful Murray River with a champagne flute in my hand and a strawberry hat on, some sunnies. And if you looked at me, you would think that I was living my best life. This was actually 4 days before I had my last drink. So
Wow.
I was tired. I was exhausted. I was starting to get really sick of running away from myself. That's how I was starting to feel every day at this time, that I was just escaping myself. It was like, yeah, very, very disconnected. Knew that my drinking was no longer serving me. I knew that my drinking had no longer been serving me for about 4 years by then. And I had continued to drink. And I was drinking a lot at the time. So that girl, she was so tired, she was so exhausted, but she was also very fearful of how she was going to break free from the trap that she was in. She just didn't know. She knew it was possible for other people because she had put a lot of podcasts in her head. She had read a lot of books. She knew it was possible for other people, but I don't think she had that belief that it was going to be possible for her because she had drank for, since the age of 14. So that girl looks really, really happy. But you're right, behind that smile was a scared lady of, very, very unsure of the future. And I think the future that she was seeing with her drinking was a future that she could see unravel in not a very nice way very, very quickly. Like I felt like I was on that downward spiral quite quickly. Very
Mm.
lucky for me that I was able to catch it before I lost anything really important in my life.
Were there people around you at the time that were concerned, that were saying anything, or do you think that you were really keeping it well hidden?
I kept it so well hidden. I internalized it like you wouldn't believe. And I think reflecting on that, I've been sober for over 3 years now. And as you know, you do a lot of reflection. And I think reflecting on that, because I felt like if I said to anybody, I'm really struggling with alcohol, I feel like I'm drinking way too much, but then not stopping was just a really silly thing to say out loud. And it was something that I was trying to come to terms with myself. So I was almost I was owning the fact that I drank a lot of wine and I was wearing that as a badge of honor when deep down I felt anything but that was a badge of honor.
Mm. We almost start to identify with the label, don't we? It's the party girl, or Georgie's the one that you call when you want to have fun, or wine's on a Friday night. And it's so scary to think of, well, who would I be if I'm not that person? Are people going to want to be friends with me? Am I still going to get to hold on to this life? It's so intrinsically linked through almost everything that we do in our society. And so that idea of removing it is just, for me, it just wasn't even something that I contemplated really, until it got so bad that I really had no other choice. But the fact that you were able to identify that before it got to that point where you were losing what was really important in your life is really amazing. And I'd love to know a little bit more about where that the way that you drank. I often find that the habits we form in childhood into adulthood, they flow on. And I know for me, I started drinking really heavily and quite alcoholically from a very young age. And what I mean by that is when I had one, I found it really hard to stop. I just wanted more and more and more. And that's kind of the way I drank from the very first drink that I had at the age of 12. And you mentioned that you were 14 when you started drinking. Were you always a binge drinker or a heavy drinker? What did that look like for you?
Yeah, I was a binge drinker. I was a heavy drinker. I drank to get drunk. That was what I done.
Right.
I think I was someone that, and I still am to this day, I push boundaries. And if society is sort of sitting in one place, I like to go that little bit further or in the opposite direction, as in sobriety. But at the time, it was like, well, if my friends are just having one or two drinks, and I'm going to have six. All right. So, and what I found, and on reflection once again, was I found a confidence within myself that I was able to just carry when I drank. So I think that's what kept me stuck drinking for the rest of my life was that confidence. It gave me that spark, it gave me that confidence. But yeah, definitely binge drinker. Like
Mm.
just really love social drinks and parties and yeah.
Mm. And did you find that as a result of that, you started creating social circles with people who drank the way you did?
Yeah, of course. Um, I think that's what we do, don't we? And I find now that I'm living a alcohol-free life that I do have a circle of women around me that are alcohol-free. I think that's just what we do. We like having those people around us. Yeah, I, on reflection though, I probably was the one that drank the most, Ash, to be honest.
Mm.
Like when we would go out for dinner, this is sort of later years when I'd go out for dinner with girlfriends and that, I think I was the one always wanting that next wine or, that thought in your head, when is the next wine coming? Is anyone having another wine? Why is everyone's glass still half full when mine is empty? Um,
Yes.
yeah, but also a lot of friendships that I had when I drank most of those I've still been able to hang on to, and that has been the most greatest gift, because that's something that I feared stepping into sobriety was, is everyone still going to love George that doesn't drink? Because as I said, I wore it
Mm,
as a badge of honor. George drank a lot of wine and she could handle it. She could get up the next day and go for a run after a bottle and a half of wine. Look at George
mm,
killing it.
yeah.
So then to be able to have to sort of turn around and say, George doesn't want to drink anymore, was really, really scary. And I wasn't sure who was going to stay in my circle and who was and who wasn't going to stay in my circle.
I'm glad that you've touched on this, Georgie, because I do think that it is a reason why so many people resist the idea of stepping into sobriety or even taking a year off alcohol. They're so afraid of the implications it might have to relationships, whether that's your intimate relationship, whether it's friends, your children. But I guarantee you, every relationship that I have in my life today is far richer in quality than any of the relationships I had when I was drinking. And even my friends that are still drinking, I'm closer to them today because I think they finally get to hang out and spend time with the real Ash. I'm not putting on this facade. When I'm present, I'm fully present. I actively listen when my friends talk to me now. I was so relating to what you were sharing just then about when back in the day, if I was drinking, I'd be sitting at the table and I'd be eyeing off everyone's drinks, working out how I could get more without people noticing. I'd offer to go get the rounds so that I could get an extra shot at the bar. Like there was all of this, mental load that I was carrying surrounding my drinking, which was taking me away from actually just being present with my friends.
Yeah, and then when you give up alcohol and you are with your loved ones and your friends or your husband or your partner, you are fully present, and it's a gift to everyone around you. Like sobriety is not only a gift to yourself, but it is a gift to your loved ones. But yeah,
Mm,
you're right. It's really, really scary navigating that in the beginning. And I think too, I'm not sure I navigated it the best that I could have. And that's something that now when I coach women, because of my own experience, I'm able to learn from that and help someone else in the coaching, or when I'm coaching someone trying to get sober, how to communicate with their loved ones around sobriety. I
mm,
think, like a drinker, I also went into it a little bit selfish and was a little bit like, well, this is all about me, instead of actually taking a step back and looking at my husband and thinking, I've actually changed his life too in such a huge way, but it took me around 3 months to really gain a respect for that. He supported me in every single way. He always does. It didn't matter if I was drinking a bottle and a half of wine every night or if I was sober. He's always had my back. But I just found there was a little bit of selfishness in me in those early stages of sobriety. So now I can actually learn from that and say, there's ways to do it. There's ways to communicate with their loved ones, because if we open our heart and let people in and let them see where we're at, they will
mm,
meet us there.
mm. Was your husband ever resistant with the idea of you getting sober?
No, he just, and I look back and I'm going to have a conversation with him. I hope when I bring the podcast back, we're going to have a really raw conversation. But he just allowed me to be me. But I do know it took him some time and it took our relationship some time to adjust, because our weekends looked like a Friday night outside cooking a barbie, having a wine, putting on some tunes. He would have a beer, overlook the pool area. That's what we would do, and that's what we would love to do together for so many years. Because I've
Mm.
been together with my husband since I was 19, and I gave up drinking alcohol when I
Wow.
was 42. So that's a
Wow.
lot of drinking time together. So all of a sudden, he's just got this wife that's just woken up one day, and this is no joke. I literally just woke up one day and said, I'm not drinking anymore. I do remember having a conversation with him. He was out at the shed at the time, and it was about 2 weeks before I'd given or had my last drink. And I said to him, I just need to stop drinking. It's really making me feel so anxious and so upset. And I know I'm getting angry with you and everything. And I remember he just looked at me and he sincerely said to me, George, you could just stop. You could just stop drinking if you wanted to. But at that moment, Ash, I looked at him and I thought, that is insane. Who just
Mm.
stops drinking? Like, who says that? Who does that? Like, it was literally like, that's not an option. Okay, but
Mm.
what is the option? And then, yeah, I come obviously to the conclusion myself that that was the right the right option. He wasn't telling me to stop drinking, but he was giving me that option that if it's not feeling good for me, I could just not do it.
Which is such a selfless act in and of itself that he, because I'm sure there would have been a part of him that perhaps grieved that version of Georgie, as you have probably done your own grieving as well. But to say, your well-being, your mental health, your physical health is more important than me being able to sit down with you on a Friday night at 5 o'clock and have a beer, like that really hits me. Like I think that is just so beautiful and so caring and loving, and what a beautiful partner that you have who did that.
Yeah, extremely supportive. And our relationship is so strong now. It is just so strong. He was never a drinker like me. He was only sort of a Friday night drinker or a Saturday night drinker, and he never binge drank. He was what you can call a moderator, okay? And we'll probably chat about moderation a bit later, but he is a moderator because his brain isn't filled with am I going to drink or am I not going to drink. He'll just have that drink. Yeah, but just to support me in that way. And now he hardly has a drink on the weekends either. Our lives have changed and we've grown together through my sobriety. He'll still maybe go out with mates every now and again and have a few beers, and that's okay. And I've never once said to him, you're not to drink or you're not to drink around me. Like, my journey's been my journey and his journey's been his journey. And as long as we can support each other on our own individual journeys, we've always been able to come back together. And I just think our relationship is probably the strongest it's ever been. And that's a real credit to the both of us after being together for so many years.
Absolutely. I always say, if you want to save a marriage, stop drinking.
Yeah, and it's
you
so
know,
true. And I
because you
do
connect.
I do think I could have lost my marriage, and I don't think it would have been necessarily him walking away. I was sort of looking down the line of really starting to feel like alcohol was trying to keep me alone, just me and the alcohol by itself. I could start to feel that really developing. And I think because of all the stories that I'd listened to, that is what happens. It's
Yes.
like like a violent partner, and he doesn't want you to go and tell anyone about it. So he just keeps you in this house and he just keeps you small and he just keeps you with that bottle. And as much as that wasn't happening, I could feel that happening and I could feel that I may start pulling away.
It's that isolation, isn't it?
That's the word I was looking for, yeah.
And then the lies that come with that. I don't know about you, Georgie, but I would be dishonest with the people I loved and those around me so that I could hide my drinking. And it almost became like this little secret. I felt so much shame about it, and yet I couldn't stop. And that's where, like, we start to become somebody that we're not. And that's when I think alcohol can really take a hold. And let's not forget that it's a highly addictive substance. You drink it for long enough and most likely there'll be some addictive tendencies. And I know that you have a belief that once addiction sets in and takes hold, moderation isn't really an option. Did you ever try and moderate? What's your experience been like with that?
Oh, hell yeah, I tried to moderate. I tried to moderate for 4 years. So from the moment I realized alcohol was not really serving me anymore, and it was sort of a realization. But then I thought, okay, I'll do all these things to moderate. I had so many rules in place. I'd done the 30 day Annie Grace challenge, this naked mind challenge. And I thought, I've got this under control. There's nothing wrong with me. I'm okay. 4 years of moderation, and it did not work because I was in a state of addiction. And when I say addiction, it just meant like my mind was filled up with thoughts around alcohol 24/7. Whether I was going to drink that day or not, I still had those thoughts in my head. There was no freedom from alcohol. The alcohol had power over me, and I had to find a way to break free from that. But moderation, I think any of us that have stepped into full sobriety have definitely give moderation so many chances.
Totally. And I think if moderation is going to work because you just moderate. There's no planning around it. It's not a big deal. You just go, "Oh yeah, I'll just have one or two tonight." And
Yeah.
that's it. Whereas I think for those of us who have tipped over into that next level of dependency or addiction or whatever you want to call it, because I know that some people don't feel comfortable with certain labels, and that's fine. Like, whatever works for you. But it's just having that awareness, and like so beautifully put, Georgie, that it's the mental obsession. It may not even be a physical dependency. Many, many people that I have spoken to, met, worked with in the past, they're not daily drinkers, but they're constantly thinking about drinking. Like, I remember maybe 10 years ago, I was still only drinking Friday, Saturday, Sunday. But I can tell you on Monday, I was thinking about what drinking I was going to be doing that next weekend. Like it's just relentless.
It's relentless, and there's no freedom in that from alcohol. And that's the way that I look at moderation. If you want to break free, and I wasn't in physical addiction, which actually surprises me, but I was definitely in mental addiction. Like the noise in my head was unbelievable, But I think the moderation, even if you can nail it, Ash, even if you, as you just said, even if you can have a drink on a Friday night, two on a Saturday night, three on a Sunday night, do not have any for the rest of the week. What happens Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday? You're still thinking about Friday and how
Mm.
many you can have and how many you should have and what time you should start. And the noise in your head is so strong that I always say to people, if you want to break free, you probably won't get there with moderation.
Mm. And I've got to say, I've never been able to moderate my drink and enjoy it. Like
Yeah.
maybe I could moderate, particularly if I was, say, in an environment where I knew I needed to be on my best behavior. I could moderate, but by God, I was not enjoying it. Not at all. It was
No,
uncomfortable.
there's not, I just found it. I actually found the moderation part of my story the hardest place to sit. I really did. I thought when I was drinking and it didn't bother me, it was just such an easy place to be. When I realized it was no longer serving me and I continued to drink for those 4 years, that was really hard because there was continual times of breaking promises to myself. And my
Mm.
self-esteem started to drop and my self-worth started to drop and I started to get anxiety and I started to feel depressed. And so that moderation period was just extremely hard for me. As soon as I drew the line in the sand and wanted to break free and wanted sobriety for good and come to the realization that moderation was not for me, I
Mm.
felt so much better. It was such a nicer place to be, as much as the early stages of sobriety are hard. I can't pretend they're not hard, but they're rewarding as well. And you can rebuild from that first day that you decide, I'm not going to do this anymore.
And so, what did you do when you made that decision finally to this is the path I want to take? What were the support systems that you put in place to ensure that you were going to achieve this goal of long term sobriety?
Honesty with myself to start with, and I had a lot of conversations, mind you, at 2 a.m. in the morning when I was wide awake from drinking alcohol. There was a lot of self-loathing, but there was also a lot of thought in those hours of being awake at that time. I'd generally wait from 2 a.m. until I got up in the morning. I'd be awake tossing and turning. I was really honest with myself in the fact that I said, how are you going to show up for social things, because you can't just stay home for the rest of your life? How are
Mm.
you going to be at home without alcohol? What are you going to do? Then, when I stepped into sobriety, and it actually wasn't planned, I don't know what the 23rd of January, what hold that had on me, but I just got up that morning and I looked in the mirror for the first time in a very long time because I hadn't been able to face myself. And I took some photos of myself because I'd started to put on weight. I just had no belief in myself whatsoever. And I just called myself out and I just said, enough of this shit. So I always say I called myself out for my own shit. Um, I stepped into sobriety and I felt really, really strong in my decision. But in saying that, I wasn't sure how I was going to do it. And Thrivalist landed on my lap. I don't know, I can't remember even Googling support for women. I don't know how, but I joined. I joined as a member and I gained the tools that were going to get me through the early stages of sobriety. And I just never looked back, Ash. Once I
Mm.
started to feel, I felt really good. I got on what you call the pink cloud in
Oh,
early
yeah.
sobriety, and I still don't think I'm off it. I truly don't. I've been one of those lucky people that I think's just stayed on there. I've definitely had some shit times. Don't get me wrong. That is life. That is being part of a human in this crazy thing called life. But yes, I felt really good from early on and I didn't want to lose that. So I was like, become really protective of that. So the tools from Thrivalist to get me through those really strong mental cravings that I would have, and all the tools that I had, I was able to stay sober until I broke free. And, when I say breaking free, we both know we can never put a time limit on that for anybody. It is people's own experience. But I felt like I broke free really quite quickly once I drew the line in the sand that alcohol
Mm.
was just, I just wasn't going to drink it anymore.
And by breaking free, I'm assuming that you are talking about the same experience I had was when you woke up one day and realized that you were no longer thinking about drinking.
Exactly. That's what I call
Oh,
freedom. Freedom from the alcohol
yeah.
trap, freedom from that noise in your head, freedom from the fight that you have to put up every day not to drink alcohol, the freedom from breaking a promise to yourself because you did drink alcohol, the freedom from the noise in just the noise in your head. I don't think we realize how much noise is in our heads when it comes to alcohol. Alcohol doesn't just pop in a glass at 5 p.m. and that's the first time you've thought about it for the day. You have generally thought about it all day long, whether that be self loathing in the morning because you've drank the night before, to a promise that you won't do it tonight, to that lunchtime feel of, oh, I think I deserve one, to that afternoon battle in your head, to that pouring of the glass of wine. It's a cycle. It's just a vicious cycle. And that's when I say, when you can break out of that cycle, it feels like true freedom to me.
It seriously is. There's no greater feeling than having that freedom of choice, freedom in life, peace of mind. As you were just describing that, Georgie, it's literally the cycle I was in, day out, 2 years straight, every single day. The broken promise, the shame, guilt, remorse. Oh, like it's just to not be there is the greatest gift ever. And it's something that I say to women all the time is like, it's available to everyone. There is nothing unique or special about you or I. Anybody can have this life, but you've just got to be willing to do the work to step into this life. And you mentioned there were some tools that you developed or learnt quite early on when you had joined Thrivalist. Do you mind sharing what some of those were? What were the ones that had the greatest impact on you?
The one that had the greatest impact to me was understanding that addictive voice in your head and being able to separate yourself from that addictive voice. So for me, I would refer to the inner mentor, which would be the one that would say to me, this isn't serving you anymore. You need to try and stop. The inner mentor would be the one that would listen to a podcast. The inner mentor that would be the one that would read This Naked Mind or listen to Annie Grace's podcast. So she was my inner mentor. And the addictive voice was the one that was pulling me back to drinking. You've had a hard day. You've had a good day. You've got a party on. You've got a wedding. You've got a funeral. Let's drink. So that is my addictive voice. And I think understanding that and being able to say to myself, I no longer need to listen to that voice. We actually refer to her as the wine witch in our community, in the
Mm,
Thrivalist community. Everyone's got a different name for her, but she's known as the wine witch. And understanding that is not who I want to be and that I don't
mm,
want to drink, and tapping into my inner mentor was extremely powerful for me. That was like a light bulb moment for me. And also another tool that was really, really helpful was playing the tape through. So for me, it was like, okay, if I do have a glass of wine, that is going to turn into 2 glasses of wine, which will turn into a bottle, which will turn into opening the second bottle, which will turn into pretty much passing out in bed, waking at 2 a.m. with a gross taste in my mouth, getting up, having a drink of coconut water. I would literally have that prepped because I knew that that was going to happen, not being able to sleep for the rest of the night, getting up at 5:15, going to gym, feeling like crap, running away from myself for the rest of the day, low self-esteem. So that was really being honest with myself and playing that tape through and saying, this is what a glass of wine's going to look like. And what
mm,
is it going to look like if I don't have a glass of wine? That is going to look like washing my face. That is going to look like hopping into my bed with fresh sheets. That is going to look like feeling proud of myself at the end of the day, having a beautiful sleep, going to gym with a bit of confidence, being able to really tap back into my strengths and who I'm meant to be. That is what the next 23 hours will look like if I don't drink. So those
mm.
two tools were just such a gift to me. Hence the reason now I own the business and share those share those tools with
Yeah,
everyone else.
they obviously had a powerful impact. Absolutely. I know that feeling though, right? Like our lives changed in such a profound way that all you want to do is share it with others because it's just the most incredible thing, this gift of sobriety and the life that we get to live on the other side. I know that you're a big advocate for viewing sobriety as an act of self-care. Can you tell me a little bit more about that and the mindset shift that you've had around that?
Yeah, I think because a lot of us, if the way that I view it is, if we go into sobriety thinking that we're going to miss out on things, we're not going to be fun, we're not going to have fun, then that's what we're going to see. And I think if we can try and change our mindset and focus on the goodness of sobriety, so it will be hard, but focus on the good of sobriety. That's what I
Mm.
say. And it's an act of self care, because drinking, self loathing, low self esteem, putting on weight, eating crap is not a form of self care. And unfortunately, society has led us to believe that drinking is a norm.
Mm.
And I think going in the opposite direction is a form of self care. And it's eating good food, it's building your self esteem, it's tapping into your strengths, it's getting to know yourself, it's showing up for your loved ones as your true, authentic self. That's self care. And if you can focus on those things, especially in early sobriety, I do believe it makes a really big difference instead of just focusing on what you're going to miss out on and all
Mm.
the
Mm.
negative. And as I said, I need to be really clear, because when I say these things, it doesn't mean that early sobriety is going to be easy, because you have to work hard at it, but it's rewarding every single day, and drinking is not.
So, so true. And you mentioned how your relationship with your husband has changed, but I'd love to know, how has your relationship changed with Ryder and Rio since becoming sober, your two children?
Oh, I'm just really proud of the example that I am setting for them, and that I am showing them that you can do life without alcohol, and it's a beautiful life to lead.
Mm.
It's also has been it's been really interesting navigating my sobriety and not putting a lot of pressure on Ryder or Rio not to have their own life experiences, because
Mm.
I got to have mine and I've learnt from those, and I have a lot of wisdom now. But it's just been really interesting and I guess challenging to navigate my views and not throwing that in their face all the time, and allowing them to work these things out for themselves. It's been
It
really
must.
important for me, and it's not easy. I can say it has not
No.
been easy, because because I have my views and I just want the best for them. And it's the
Mm.
same with everything. I want the best for them, but they have to work that out for themselves. But if I can now be an example of what life looks like without alcohol, and I know they would see the happier mum in me. I was still a good mum when I drank. I know I was still a good mum, but I wasn't the mum that I am today.
Yeah, I mean, I can only imagine how hard it must be to bite your tongue and
Oh,
just allow them to live their life all the while, having your experiences and seeing how much better life is on the other side in sobriety. But you're totally right. They're going to live their life, and how amazing that they have a mum that they can turn to if and when they're ready, to ask more questions about what a sober life looks like, and the fact that you are that leading shining example of that it is possible, and that it's normal. It's not this foreign concept, that a sober life is actually really accessible if that's something that they want,
yeah,
at
that's
any
exactly.
time.
That's
Mm.
right, yeah. And I think too, being able to be that mum that, if things go bad for them in a situation, they're not scared to come to me. Then they're not going to think that I'm going to say, I told you so. I don't want to be that either. I need to keep all of that communication really wide open. And I think always telling them not to drink isn't the way for me and my own experiences to go about it. But that's been a difficult it's been a real challenge for me, Ash, to work through those thoughts and feelings, because
Mm.
it can feel a little bit conflicting.
I bet. I bet. Georgie, tell me, what are the common myths about sobriety that you would like to bust? Things that maybe are keeping people on the fence that, you've now experienced on the other side and you just wish everyone knew.
I think the fear. I
Mm.
don't want people to fear sobriety, because I feared it for so long. And I think the fear comes from stepping into the unknown. Because if you've drank from the age of 14 in most social situations, stepping into life at the age of 42 sober was something that I really, really feared. But I can promise you, if you have the right people around you, that things will be okay, and you will be rewarded for taking that leap and stepping into that fear. So there. there's nothing to fear about sobriety because we really are only fearing ourselves, and we really are only fearing how we're going to be able to show up as our true authentic self. But I can promise you that your true authentic self will shine through, and it will lead the way.
Yeah, it's my experience has been is when you remove alcohol, the real you starts to shine through. You actually get to meet who you are underneath all the layers and the masks and the different sets of armor that we wear as these protective mechanisms. All of that falls away. And then who you are at your core, your essence, your highest self, that is finally revealed.
And I don't think I've ever met someone that's sober that hasn't really liked themselves sober. Like they really enjoy their true, authentic self. It takes a little while to get to know them, and you have to be very gentle when she's coming through. But every woman I have ever met sober has really enjoyed getting to know themselves again. So that fear that you're feeling is so, so normal, but don't let it hold you back.
Mm, such a powerful message. How do you support women who are grappling with this fear when it comes to societal judgment, fear of missing out, changing relationships? What's your guidance around that?
A lot's around communication as well. The first thing I say to people is you have to have an understanding that if you're going to drink to please other people, you're actually abandoning yourself, and
Mm,
understanding that boundary. Number one.
mm,
And communication is such a huge part. As I touched on earlier, I don't think I'd done that quite right in my own early stages of sobriety, but communications with our loved ones, opening our hearts and letting them in, saying, I am really struggling with this. Because if you just show up and you say, I'm not drinking anymore, I just don't feel like it, it's a little bit wishy-washy. But if you can really show up vulnerably and share why and share what alcohol is doing to you and the damage it's doing to you from the inside out, it allows people and it allows them to come from a place of understanding, and then it allows them to be able to support you. And I think I may have had that little bit of a wall up still in the early stages of sobriety, and I didn't quite let people see what and I guess I felt like I'd allowed the alcohol to do it to me. Now, stepping right away from it, I understand that it is an addictive substance, and it was that was doing the damage to me. But yeah, so just, yeah, I lost my train of thought there.
yeah, I love that. It's what you were saying there is really about you've got to do it for you and you like to not worry about what anyone around you is going to think. And like your husband so beautifully showed you, if people have your best interests at heart, they are going to support this decision. And if
Yeah,
they don't, then that is a red flag.
yeah, exactly right. And you may lose a few relationships along the way, but you'll be strong enough to navigate them, because when you
Mm,
get sober, you do become this really strong person. You become this strong individual, and you can just back yourself because you really understand what you need. You really understand what boundaries you need to set and the communication you need to have. So, yeah, it's just really important just to continue to back yourself.
yeah, it's like you're stronger than we just you got to let
Right.
that part of you come through. Speaking of strength and being stronger than I want to chat to you about your decision to put your podcast on hold because I know that that was you putting in boundaries to protect your energy. But can you share a little bit more about how you came to that decision and how have you learnt to be able to tune in and honor that part of yourself?
Yeah, and I love this. I love boundary setting. I love doing a lot of work around this, but I think it just comes back to number one, understanding yourself and understanding when things get too much. Like if your calendar gets too full, if you're getting too burnt out, if you're feeling really agitated, that's the first sign. But then it's actually being able to have a look at what you're doing and what's going on in your life and saying, what can I take off my plate? That's a really
Mm,
big thing. And with the podcast, I absolutely loved doing it and I miss doing it, but it was a lot of work and
It's
taking
a
over.
huge amount of work.
Yeah, and taking over the business from someone else and having to then shift it into my own has been
Mm,
a really big challenge and probably something that I underestimated the time that that would take and the energy that would take. And that was my number one focus. And I also felt like doing the podcast was pulling me a little bit away from the Thrivalist community and those ladies. And I wanted to invest everything I could into these women that are actually putting their trust in me, and that became really important. So it just became clear to me that at the moment I needed to put it on hold, and I actually done it in stages. I went from weekly podcasts, I then put it back to fortnightly podcasts, and that still felt a little bit heavy, so I just decided to put that boundary in place. And Ash, you'll so relate to this, but when you make that decision, you'll know whether it's right or not, because I felt a sense of relief.
mm, exactly right. And it's so important. This is one of the gifts of sobriety, is having that discernment and that ability to really tune in and ask what's right for me in this season. And also having permission. I've shared openly about when I decided to stop recording Behind the Smile, and that inner voice that was calling me to come back. And I was able to listen to that and come back. And, of course, I had to grapple with the inner dialogue. What are people going to think? What are they going to say? Oh, like all of this crazy inner critic stuff that we deal with. And I remember just sitting with a friend at dinner at her house, and she just said, Ash, who gives a fuck? Like,
Yeah, so
do
true.
what, like, stop. This podcast has changed the lives of so many people. It's your calling. Like, don't let the fear of what other people are going to say or think, like, people that are going to talk, Georgie. It's like, you
Yep.
can't change that.
Hmm.
And it's just about doing what feels right for you and honoring that journey and really honoring your higher self, which I think you've done in this moment. It's beautiful.
Yeah, and that's so true. I think it's just not worrying about the outside noise, and that's
Mm,
something that becomes a lot easier to do when you're sober. I found
mm,
that was something I really started to struggle with when I was drinking a lot, because I didn't have that self belief there anymore, that other people's judgments felt so heavy on my heart. And I didn't want to
mm,
be that person. I wasn't that person growing up. I was always that person that would do me. I would just do what I wanted to do. Like, everyone had long hair, I had short hair. All my friends played netball, I played hockey. I was happy to do my own thing. But I fell into this addiction with the alcohol, and I just felt like I was being pulled back into that, critical self judgment, and worrying about what other people thought of me. And that wasn't who I am at my core. So,
mm.
stepping into the sobriety, it just allows you to really understand yourself and know what is right for you and not worry about the noise around you. And as your friend said, who gives a fuck? Like, just do
Mm-hmm.
you. And Ash, I can promise you, when you started your podcast again, because I'm in this sober curious space with all my women, oh my goodness, everyone just goes off in Thrivalist about you. So you
Yay.
definitely done the right thing by jumping back on, because yeah, you were and we do need to take a pause sometimes and clear out the noise and find a way to find what's the right direction for us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh, that warms my heart. That thank you so much. And I absolutely adore your community there. It's a really special place what you've built there. Georgie, we're coming towards the end of this conversation today. Time flies when we're having fun, but there is one final question that I would love to ask you. And that question is, what are your three non-negotiables that allow you to live your life today happy, authentic, and free?
Oh, three. Okay, well, exercise every day or movement of my body every day is a non negotiable. I can wake up with a mood of, let's just say, around 3. And I know in my heart of hearts that after I have moved my body the way that I choose to move my body that day, I'll be driving home and I'll sit at least a 7. So
Amazing.
it's moving my body every single day. It is not abandoning my boundaries. It is being able to say no. So for me, I tap in and I say, if it's not a hell yeah, it's a polite no, thank you.
I love that.
Yeah. And I guess just showing up as my best self for my family and being the best mum that I can be. And I guess that also comes back to boundaries and making sure that I'm protecting myself and my energy and being the best person I can be, because then I can be the best mum that my children deserve. And the best wife and the best sister and the best daughter, because as I said, or as you said in the bio, those relationships mean the absolute world to me. So if I can be my best self, I know that that is going to be a gift to my loved ones around me.
Absolutely. Amen to that. Georgie, I have loved chatting with you here today, and I'm sure that our listeners are going to want to track you down and find out more. So where should they go?
You can go to my Instagram, which is at Thrivalist Sobriety. I just do all things health and wellness there, all things sobriety. And obviously you can jump on the website, which is thrivalistsobriety.com. But just connect. I absolutely love hearing from women, whether you are struggling, whether you're at day 500. I just love hearing about your sobriety journey and where you're at. So I love getting a DM. So yeah, feel free to connect and just DM and share with me where you're at, and just never be fearful of reaching out. And that's what something that I always really love to push is don't be fearful of reaching out for that lifeline and reaching out, to you or I, Ash, or there's so many beautiful women in this sober, curious space that can support you. And it is sometimes just taking that first step and being able to say, I need help. I'm a little bit stuck, and we will totally hold your hand and we will gently guide you from there. So I think it's just, sharing just to reach out. Doesn't matter how you do it, but I'll be there for you.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much, Georgie. I'll make sure I pop that information in the episode show notes. We say here on Behind the Smile that when we recover loudly, no one needs suffer in silence. So thank you so, so much for joining me here today and sharing your story.
Thanks for having me, Ash, and thank you for rebooting the podcast. I must say, I was very excited too. Thank you, Ash.
Thanks, Georgie. A big thank you for tuning in today. If you'd like to support the show, you can do so by hitting the follow button and leaving a rating and review. Each rating and review helps this podcast become more discoverable so more people can hear these stories of strength and hope. Remember to reach out to those you care about, and I'll be back next week. Until then.